everybody, I am back, and yes, in the same outfit that I recorded my other two videos, but I am here to give you my review on The Turner House by Angela Flournoy, or Flournoy, I should say. I'm sorry, I mispronounced her last name. This is the book you all picked for me to read in February and to give you a review, so here I am. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I definitely enjoyed reading this book, even though I thought there would be a little bit more depth to the book. Actually, no, scratch that. This book is about the Turner family in Detroit. It is a black family, focusing on the trials and tribulations of a family of 13. So there are 13 siblings. There's also in the front of the book, and it becomes important, there is a Turner family tree because there are so many of them. It's a story about every single member in this family tree. No, and thank God it isn't, because it'd be a much longer book and a much more complicated book. But what happens is the central story is surrounding the house, their former, childhood family home, and the trials and tribulations facing their still living mother and a couple of the siblings in the book. I'm not trying to give too many things away with this book because I think even though it's simplistic, it still has a lot to give. And I'm not trying to give all that away by, going through the whole thing. What stood out to me was not just like the little bit of lessons in here about kind of keeping secrets from yourself or not being real about your problems and issues. Pride was also an issue in this book, and why a lot of family members were having issues. But the quote on the front of the book from NPR, it says, "Flournoy's knockout debut is one of those books that should, by rights, be described as a great American novel." And that idea stuck to me while I was reading this book. These situations and the story of these siblings and the parents, so they're going between 2008 and I think the late 1940s in this book, when the parents were kind of in their first few years of marriage. I think that NPR is right on the money about this being the great American novel. Not about maybe literariness, even though this is definitely a well-written book, but the fact of having the trials and tribulations in this book and dealing with it as a family, I think is a very American concept, and a very American thing. Just dealing with like the idea of home ownership, dealing with ailing parents, dealing with siblings, and just your family in general. Even the migration from the South to Detroit, the Midwest, I don't know. But kind of like, immigrating from the South to a different part of the U.S. Sorry, I'm very bad at directions and coordinates and stuff like that. I think it's definitely a very American story. Even though it is a black family, and let's not forget, black American stories in history is American stories in history. So I think on just the basic, if you stripped, I don't know if you can completely strip race as a factor, but if you were someone who wanted to ignore the fact of, or even forget that this family is a black family, you could do that with this book and still relate. I don't suggest it, but you can do that. And that is because this story, I wouldn't necessarily say it's universal, but it's definitely an American tale. I also say that from seeing certain things go on in my own family, that kind of seeing my parents and their siblings deal with certain issues that come up in the family and how difficult that can be. Just my mom is one of 6 and my dad is one of 4. Like, these sibling issues or sibling rivalries, and you know, just loving and taking care of your family even in times you don't want to is definitely a real thing. Do I think that's only American thing? No, but I think the way this story is framed is definitely American. And also, even though race is important, it is important that they are a black family. A racial story, or like, you know, a lot of people assume that all stories of including black people are going to be talking about racism. This book doesn't do that. This book definitely doesn't focus on racism, and actually it was refreshing to kind of read a story still dealing with black people that was not focused on isms. Along with, I think I said this in a former video, specifically about the mothers with Britt Bennett. The woman who was interviewing her when she was at Politics and Prose here in DC said that her book and The Turner House are kind of like the very few books that focus on just the average black American family. And I totally agree with that statement. Like, and this book still had value. It still had a point. It still had a life lesson. And without trying to drill into you that black people are human, you see this human American story. I definitely suggest that you all pick this up. I agree with everyone else who does not have a bad thing to say about this book. Was it the strongest? Does it deserve an award? No, I don't think it's an award-winning book, but it's definitely a worthy book. It's definitely worthy of you picking up and reading it, and I don't think you'd be disappointed. I had a coworker who told me that it always seems like it's getting sentimental, but it never goes there, and I agree with his opinion. This is not a story that is just looking for sympathy, that's saying, oh, look how hard they have it, but just a story, just a great story about a family, and there's merit to that. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments. If you've read this book, if not, do you plan on picking this up? I highly suggest you do, however you see fit. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.